The Basilica y Temple Expiatory de la Sagrada Familia, otherwise known as Sagrada Familia, is a church under construction in the Eixample district of Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain. It is the largest unfinished Catholic church in the world. Designed by Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí, 1852–1926, his work on Sagrada Familia is part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. On November 7, 2010, Pope Benedict XVI consecrated the church and proclaimed it a minor basilica. On March 19, 1882, construction of the Sagrada Familia began under architect Francisco de Paula del Villar. In 1883, when Villar resigned, Gaudí took over as chief architect, transforming the project with his architectural and engineering style, combining Gothic and curvilinear Art Nouveau forms. Gaudí devoted the remainder of his life to the project, and he is buried in the church's crypt. At the time of his death in 1926, less than a quarter of the project was complete. Relying solely on private donations, the Sagrada Familia's construction progressed slowly and was interrupted by the Spanish Civil War. In July 1936, anarchists from the FI set fire to the crypt and broke their way into the workshop, partially destroying Gaudí's original plans. In 1939, Francesc de Paula Quintana took over site management, which was able to go on due to the material that was saved from Gaudí's workshop and that was reconstructed from published plans and photographs. Construction resumed to intermittent progress in the 1950s. Advancements in technologies such as computer-aided design and computerized numerical control, CNC, have since enabled faster progress and construction past the midpoint in 2010. However, some of the project's greatest challenges remain, including the construction of 5 more spires, each symbolizing an important biblical figure in the New Testament. It was anticipated that the building would be completed by 2026, the centenary of Gaudí's death, but this has now been delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some aspects of it may only be finished by 2040. Describing the Sagrada Familia, art critic Reinhard Serps said it is probably impossible to find a church building anything like it in the entire history of art, and Paul Goldberger describes it as the most extraordinary personal interpretation of Gothic architecture since the Middle Ages. The Basilica is not the Cathedral Church of the Archdiocese of Barcelona, as that title belongs to the Cathedral of the Holy Cross in St. Eulalia. The church is designed to have 3 grand facades, the Nativity facade to the east, the Passion facade to the west, and the Glory facade to the south. The Nativity facade was built before work was interrupted in 1935 and bears the most direct Gaudí influence. The Passion facade was built according to the design that Gaudí created in 1917. The construction began in 1954, and the steeples, built over the elliptical plan, were finished in 1976. It is especially striking for its spare, gaunt, tormented characters, including emaciated figures of Christ being scourged at the pillar, and Christ on the cross. These controversial designs are the work of Josep Maria Subirachs. The Glory facade, on which construction began in 2002, will be the largest and most monumental of the 3 and will represent one's ascension to God. It will also depict various scenes such as hell, purgatory, and will include elements such as the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues. Constructed between 1893 and 1936, the Nativity facade was the first facade to be completed. Dedicated to the birth of Jesus, it is decorated with scenes reminiscent of elements of life. Characteristic of Gaudí's naturalistic style, the sculptures are ornately arranged and decorated with scenes and images from nature, each a symbol in its own manner. For instance, the 3 porticos are separated by 2 large columns, and at the base of each lies a turtle or a tortoise, one to represent the land and the other the sea. Each are symbols of time as something set in stone and unchangeable. In contrast to the figures of turtles and their symbolism, 2 chameleons can be found at either side of the facade and are symbolic of change. The facade faces the rising sun to the northeast, a symbol for the birth of Christ. It is divided into 3 porticos, each of which represents a theological virtue, hope, faith and charity. The tree of life rises above the door of Jesus in the portico of charity. 4 steeples complete the facade and are each dedicated to a Saint Matthias, Barnabas, Jude the Apostle, and Simon the Zealot. In contrast to the highly decorated Nativity facade, the Passion facade is austere, plain and simple, with ample bare stone, and is carved with harsh straight lines to resemble the bones of a skeleton. Dedicated to the Passion of Christ, the suffering of Jesus during his crucifixion, the facade was intended to portray the sins of man. Construction began in 1954, following the drawings and instructions left by Goethe for future architects and sculptors. The steeples were completed in 1976, and in 1987 a team of sculptors, headed by Josep Maria Subirachs, began work sculpting the various scenes and details of the facade. They aimed to give a rigid, angular form to provoke a dramatic effect. Goethe intended for this facade to strike fear into the onlooker. He wanted to break arcs and cut columns, and to use the effect of chiaroscuro, dark angular shadows contrasted by harsh rigid light, to further show the severity and brutality of Christ's sacrifice. Facing the setting sun, indicative and symbolic of the death of Christ, the Passion facade is supported by 6 large and inclined columns, designed to resemble strained muscles. Above there is a pyramidal pediment, made up of 18 bone-shaped columns, which culminate in a large cross with a crown of thorns. Each of the 4 steeples is dedicated to an apostle: James, Thomas, Philip, and Bartholomew, and, like the Nativity facade, there are 3 porticos, each representing the theological virtues, though in a much different light. The scenes sculpted into the facade may be divided into 3 levels, which ascend in an S form and reproduce the stations of the cross. The lowest level depicts scenes from Jesus' last night before the crucifixion, including the Last Supper, Kiss of Judas, Ecce Homo, and the Sanhedrin trial of Jesus. The middle level portrays the Calvary, or Golgotha, of Christ, and includes the 3 Marys, Saint Longinus, Saint Veronica, and a hollow face illusion of Christ on the veil of Veronica. In the third and final level, the death, burial and the resurrection of Christ can be seen. A bronze figure situated on a bridge creating a link between the steeples of St. Bartholomew and St. Thomas represents the ascension of Jesus. The largest and most striking of the facades will be the Glory facade, on which construction began in 2002. It will be the principal facade and will offer access to the central nave. Dedicated to the celestial glory of Jesus, it represents the road to God, death, final judgment, and glory, while hell is left for those who deviate from God's will. Aware that he would not live long enough to see this facade completed, Goethe made a model which was demolished in 1936. The completion of this facade may require the partial demolition of the block with buildings across the Carrer de Mallorca. To reach the Glory portico, the large staircase will lead over the underground passage built over Carrer de Mallorca with the decoration representing hell and vice. The portico will have 7 large columns dedicated to gifts of the Holy Spirit. At the base of the columns there will be representations of the 7 deadly sins, and at the top, the 7 heavenly virtues. Gifts: wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, piety and fear of the Lord. Sins: greed, lust, pride, gluttony, sloth, wrath, envy. Virtues: kindness, diligence, patience, charity, temperance, humility, chastity. Goethe's original design calls for a total of 18 spires, representing in ascending order of height the 12 apostles, the 4 evangelists, the Virgin Mary, and, tallest of all, Jesus Christ. 13 spires have been completed as of 2023, corresponding to 4 apostles at the Nativity facade, 4 apostles at the Passion facade, the 4 evangelists, and the Virgin Mary. The completion of the Jesus Christ spire will make Sagrada Familia the tallest church building in the world, 11 meters, 36.1 feet, taller than the current record holder, Ulm Minster, which is 161.5 meters, 529.9 feet, at its highest point. The church plan is that of a Latin cross with 5 aisles. The central nave vaults reach 45 meters, 148 feet, while the side nave vaults reach 30 meters, 98 feet. The transept has 3 aisles. The columns are on a 7.5 meters, 25 feet, grid. However, the columns of the apse, resting on Del Villar's foundation, do not adhere to the grid, requiring a section of columns of the ambulatory to transition to the grid, thus creating a horseshoe pattern to the layout of those columns. The crossing rests on the 4 central columns of porphyry supporting a great hyperboloid surrounded by 2 rings of 12 hyperboloids, currently under construction. The central vault reaches 60 meters, 200 feet. The apse is capped by a hyperboloid vault reaching 75 meters, 246 feet. Goethe intended that a visitor standing at the main entrance be able to see the vaults of the nave, crossing, and apse, thus the graduated increase in vault loft. There are gaps in the floor of the apse, providing a view down into the crypt below. The columns of the interior are a unique Goethe design. Besides branching to support their load, their ever-changing surfaces are the result of the intersection of various geometric forms. The simplest example is that of a square base evolving into an octagon as the column rises, then a 16-sided form, and eventually to a circle. This effect is the result of a 3-dimensional intersection of helicoidal columns, for example a square cross-section column twisting clockwise and a similar one twisting counterclockwise. Essentially none of the interior surfaces are flat. The ornamentation is comprehensive and rich, consisting in large part of abstract shapes which combine smooth curves and jagged points. Even detail-level work such as the iron railings for balconies and stairways are full of curvaceous elaboration. Please follow us in our succeeding videos as we explore the beautiful country Spain. Please don't forget to hit the like button, the notification bell for notifications. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more exciting videos.